going to start that now. Good. You should have gotten a notice just now that the recording is in progress. And that recording may be shared. There aren't any cameras for participants and there is no chat function. We do encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A function. You should see a button for that at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to see the questions that other participants have submitted. And if there's a question that you really would like to see answered, you can upvote that, so that will get to the top of our queue. We may be able to answer some of those questions behind the scenes, and those answers should be visible to the rest of you as well. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Leslie Bannigan and Renee Johnson with Kitsap Public Health. Leslie and Renee have over 25 years combined experience in helping people with their septic systems to save money and keep our water clean by keeping their septic systems working well. Leslie and Renee are both passionate about helping people and sharing their knowledge. I'll turn it over to Leslie and Renee.
Did you know that you could get more life out of your septic system by inspecting the tank every 3 years and pumping when needed? Hi folks, I'm Leslie Bannigan.
And I'm Renee Johnson.
We're environmental health specialists with Kitsap Public Health, where we find and fix fecal pollution sources so they don't make people sick. We also help people get the most life from their septic system investments, and we're here today to help you get pumped for septic tank pumping.
Close your eyes and imagine you're hosting a backyard barbecue. Everyone is having a great time and the kitchen and bathroom are getting plenty of use. Then you smell a lingering odor, and it's not the delicious smell of searing meat on the barbecue. You decide to sniff out the source. And what do you find? Sewage bubbling up from your septic tank. Over the next hour, we'll share some tips to prevent this from happening to you.
We want you to get the most life out of your septic system because it's a big investment. When we meet with people, we've noticed some common barriers or reasons why maintenance is postponed. Let's take a poll of the group to see which of these apply to you. In just a couple of minutes, we can all see the combined results of the group, and don't worry, it's anonymous.
Leslie and Renee, you should now be able to see the results.
Great. So you can see there are quite a few barriers to maintenance. We struggle with these barriers too, and we want to help you overcome them by sharing some simple steps and some real life stories so you can get the most life possible from your septic system. The important things are to know how it works, know how to maintain it, avoid water overload, avoid strong waste, and prevent physical damage. Let's start with how a septic system works. Here is a standard gravity system. The basics are the same even if you have a more complicated alternative system. You can see how all the house wastewater flows through a septic tank where the solids settle, allowing just the clear wastewater to go through to the drain field soils. This is a side view of a one-compartment septic tank. Sewage flows into the tank through the inlet baffle, a pipe that turns the water 90 degrees. So the scum floats to the top and the sludge settles to the bottom. Baffles keep the stronger scum and sludge solids in the tank so they don't plug drain field soils. Only the clearer wastewater in the middle of the tank, called effluent, flows to the drain field. Bacteria in your digested food waste helps break down the solids in your tank. So if you want to do something nice for your septic system, eat a delicious meal and use the bathroom, because the microbes from your body do all the work. So don't waste your money on septic system additives. Reduce the use of strong chemicals and cleaning products because they can kill those good microbes in your tank and drain field. It's very important to inspect the tank every 3 years and pump when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. More complicated alternative septic systems require inspection at least every year. Here is a typical 2-compartment tank. The second compartment provides another layer of protection for your drain field because the scum and sludge solids settle out more. Protect your septic system and prevent your drain field from early clogging by inspecting your tank and baffles every 3 years and pump your tank when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. A filter is sometimes added in the outlet baffle of the septic tank. These need regular service to prevent sewage overflows in your home or yard. And please reach out to me or Renee if you have questions about how to safely clean an effluent filter. You can see the green watertight risers on the tank lid. These give easy access so you don't have to dig up your tank every time it needs service. It's very important to secure your tank lids to prevent the tragedy of kids and pets falling in. Here's a close-up picture looking down at the center wall inside a 2-compartment septic tank. You can see the white baffle that straddles the 2 compartments. The wastewater effluent leaves the tank, flowing through a watertight pipe into a distribution box. You can see the 2-inch wastewater inlet pipe into the D box. 4 larger pipes flow to the drain field legs, and inside those pipes, you can see the round black levelers that adjust to help effluent flow equally to the drain field legs. Sometimes distribution boxes deteriorate or fill with sludge or roots. Protect your D box from plant and tree roots. Here's a video of wastewater flowing into a distribution box from a septic tank. We've shown you how wastewater is collected and transported through the septic tank and distribution box. Now let's talk about wastewater treatment. Soil can do an amazing job of filtering and treating wastewater. Soil microbes gobble up waste particles as the wastewater effluent wicks through unsaturated soil. And septic systems are carefully designed and drain fields are located to make sure there's enough soil to treat the waste. State and local laws permit different systems depending on soil type and depth and setbacks to wells and surface water. Most of us in Washington rely on groundwater for drinking. That's why we need to make sure that wastewater is treated by the septic system soils so the bugs in sewage don't make us sick. When you pump water from a well, it develops a cone of depression as it draws in groundwater from around it. That's why it's so important to have your septic set back from wells and to keep your septic system working well. Here's a gravel and perforated pipe drain field. Perforated pipe has holes in it to allow the wastewater effluent to move into the gravel and soils. This is a rare look inside a gravelless drain field. These chambers are used when clean gravel is hard to find or on sites with difficult access. This photo shows a distribution box and transport lines for a gravity drain field, where wastewater effluent is distributed equally to each drain field leg. The observation ports allow you to see inside the drain field from above the ground to make sure the system is working as it was designed. Gravity drain fields with serial distribution like this are typically used on slopes. Sewage completely fills the top leg of the drain field first, and only when the top leg is full does it step down or overflow to the next leg. You need to manage trees and shrubs near the step downs to prevent damage. Pressure distribution systems divide the wastewater effluent into 6 or more doses a day. The doses are pumped to the drain field through pressurized drain field lines that distribute the wastewater dose throughout the whole drain field. This more complicated alternative design is used when the soil isn't deep enough to treat the waste through gravity distribution. Pressure distribution systems require annual maintenance because they can easily become clogged without it. Now that you know how a septic system works, let's look at some septic system failures. This one has the typical foul-smelling, slimy, blackish-gray water surfacing in the drain field. This one also has standing water and soggy soils in the drain field. Some other things to look for are wet spots in dry weather, gray water, which is laundry or wash water discharging to the ground or surface waters, or gurgling sounds, slow drainage, or backups in plumbing caused by a slow drain field. This tank is a hazard because it's open to the ground surface where people and pets can fall in and flies can transport waste out. See the stained area on the green septic tank riser and signs of moisture on the otherwise dry ground? These are signs of a septic tank overflow that is partially dried. Here we confirmed that sewage was leaking into the lake by flushing red dye in the house toilet and finding it coming out in the lake. We found high bacteria counts at this bulkhead drain, and dye testing the house confirmed it was sewage leaking out on the beach. Now that you know how a septic system works and what a failure looks like, here's how you find the records for your septic system. Permit and maintenance records have important information about where your system parts are located and your water budget, or how much water the system was designed to treat every day. Go to www.kitsappublichealth.org. Find the Wells and Septic section at the bottom of the page, and you can search for your property records, application and permit status, and maintenance system septic maintenance records. The sewage permit's your guide to the size and location of your system. This one's sized for 3 bedrooms at 360 gallons a day. The as-built drawing shows the approximate size and location of the septic system. This one shows the house, septic tank, distribution box, and 3 60-foot drain field legs. Here's the building site application. This is the septic system plan, and it's based on water budget, soil type and depth, and required setbacks. The building site application includes a plot plan showing the proposed layout of the system. Modern building site applications dedicate a reserve area for septic system replacement when needed. If you have trouble finding your records or your water budget, please reach out to me or Renee. Next, we're going to share some stories to highlight the importance of regular maintenance and some simple fixes to get a system back in order. Leaky toilets can fail septic systems. My family had an old basement toilet that we didn't use, but one day my husband used it and he forgot to jiggle the handle. We were lucky that our pump tank alarm let us know about the leak before sewage came up in the backyard.
Roof gutters can direct rainwater and sediment into your tank and drain field. Leslie and I visited this property with a history of tank overflows and gurgling in the plumbing. The roof gutter was draining directly to the septic tank and overwhelming it during heavy rains. Route your downspouts at least 10 feet away on the downhill side of your tank and drain field, so your system can do the important job of treating your dirty water. Thick scum and sludge from delayed pumping can plug your system. The landlord of this house was proud he hadn't pumped the tank in 20 years. He didn't even pump the tank at his own home until it backed up inside and made a big mess. This tank was almost totally full of scum and sludge. That's living in the danger zone. You wouldn't wait for problems to change the oil in your car, and you shouldn't wait for problems to pump your septic tank. Reduce stress on your system and yourself by having your tank inspected every 3 years and pumped when it's 1/3 full of solids. Even with regular operation and maintenance, alternative systems can still get thick scum and sludge. My system recently had high scum and sludge in one compartment. The pumper didn't empty it during 2 prior visits because they didn't want to remove internal parts. During the next checkup, my operation and maintenance person saw it was still 80 to 90% full of solids. Yikes, that's not good. If you have an alternative system, check with the pumper to see if your maintenance person needs to be on hand during pumping. No matter what type of system you have, you can prevent excessive scum and sludge buildup. Always do your scheduled maintenance, keep food scraps from going down the drain, and don't use garbage disposals. Be sure to spread out your laundry load so the fibers from your clothes have time to settle out in the tank. And avoid using strong chemicals like bleach, ammonia, and liquid drain openers and harsh cleaners because they can slow or stop normal tank processes by killing the good microbes in your tank and drain field. The tool shown in this video is called a sludge judge, and it's measuring the sludge in my tank. Delayed maintenance can lead to surfacing sewage in your yard. We helped the owner of this system overcome her fear of unknown costs. She was worried, but led me to the wet spot in her yard. She put on her boots and gloves and slogged through the sewagey mess to find the outlet baffle access. She used a metal fence stake to pry off the cap and fish out the filter. The filter hadn't been cleaned in 7 years. A clean filter and septic pumping was all it took to get this system back on track. Prevention is key. Know your system components and keep track of the maintenance to prevent problems. Regular pumping and inspections can help uncover other issues like problems caused by settling or physical damage. When the owner of this system had his tank pumped, the water level was too high. Sometimes this happens when components have settled or are damaged, and sometimes it happens when a drain field isn't taking water at the designed rate. He used his contractor experience and tools to find and fix the problem and was delighted to find a bent transport line instead of a drain field issue. Protect your system from damage caused by parking, burning, driving, or pasturing large animals because septic systems are often buried shallowly.
You can protect your septic system and save money by using fewer harsh cleaning products. Instead, you can use greener options like baking soda, vinegar, oxygenated cleaner, and Castile soap. Make your own green cleaning kit with the link that you'll find in our resource list. For safety, it's important to label all cleaning products you make and not to reuse cleaning product bottles. To wrap up, you can protect your septic system investment by knowing how to maintain it, avoiding water overload, avoiding strong waste, and preventing physical damage.
Thank you, Leslie and Renee. I want to remind you that we will be answering questions. We're going to save those till the end of all the presentations, though. We've already got a few in the Q&A. You can use the upvote function to boost one of those higher in our priority for answering, but we're going to make every effort to answer all the questions. We left quite a bit of time for Q&A. I'd like to now introduce you to Paul Cushy. Paul's been a Master Gardener for 7 years, and he's co-lead for the Kitsap Master Gardener Answer Clinic. Paul's passion is helping people solve garden and plant problems, and he's also president of the Kitsap County Dahlia Society. Take it away, Paul.
Thanks, Cami, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about planting around and over your septic systems. There are 6 elements to your planning process. Make sure you know your system and know where it is located. And if you don't, check with Kitsap Public Health. They have your records. Protect your components from damage. Roots cause more damage than a shovel. It's obvious. You'll see an obvious picture here in a moment. Protect your soil from compaction. Driving your truck, cars, and other vehicles over the top of your drain field is not a good idea. Choose your plants carefully. Make sure we have plants that are low small root structures. Consider plant size at maturity. Don't believe the nursery tags. These are only 3 to 5 years of growth. When they've been in there 10 years, they're going to be a lot bigger. Locate your large plants and trees far away from your components. Never plant a tree or shrub, with aggressive roots near your system or near your drain fields. Let me repeat that. Never. This is a good example of a drain line that's plugged up. Your tank and drain lines can get plugged just like this perforated pipe that was removed from a drain field. Only choose shallow rooted plants. Always avoid woody plants because woody plants have strong woody roots. like willows and cedars with large root systems. Lawn, I know you hate mowing, and I hate mowing too, but lawns are the best alternative. Shallow root systems drain well and are easy to replace if you have to do any work around your system. There are a number of alternatives to lawns that you can consider. My favorite is an eco lawn, because I would like to see a field of small English daisies mixed with your grass. It also helps reduce your mowing. There are lawn substitutes. Wildflowers are a common drain field planting application. They are low maintenance, nice to look at, easy to reseed, and in most cases will simply reseed themselves. Here's a picture of a shallow root, low maintenance perennials sitting on top of a drain field. These also can be replaced fairly easily if you have to service your system. It is always acceptable to be creative and hide your components. None of us like to look at those tanks and D-boxes and inspection ports, so be creative. Even a simple decorative pot on the lid of a lawn can remove the eyesore. Creating a small garden around a lid is acceptable with the correct plants. Or painting and being creative with mosaic on the lids, can change the appearance of those ugly tank tops. But don't hide too well. You will need to find them in the future, guaranteed. Don't cover with heavy or permanent objects. Don't cover with concrete, plastic sheeting, weed cloth, or any kind of permanent material. These are living, breathing systems and need to be open to the environment. Maintain easy access to your system at all times. You don't want to have to tear up your garden any more than you have to, and you should be pumping every 3 years. Kitsap County hard surface requirements is 10 feet away from the tank. So no concrete patios over the top of your tanks or near your drain field. You'll regret it later. I always get the question about vegetable gardens. You don't want to have to, vegetable gardens should never be planted on top of a drain field. Remember, this is a living, breathing ecosystem for processing your household effluent. Gardens need frequent watering, and overwatering will destroy the drain field. Rototilling and turning soil disrupts the surface and impacts the ability of the drain field to function. Regular access with tractors or with other equipment creates compaction. You don't want to compact the top of your soil. Seasonal planting and replanting can damage the components. But most of all, septic effluent contains human pathogens. Septic system failures can put raw sewage into the soil. Not a good place to plant your vegetables. So just plant a lawn, save yourself a lot of potential trouble in the future. Okay, we've told you what not to do, but we can tell you that there are things you can do. And the best way to do that is to contact this address, where we have a list of plants that you can plant on, over, and around your systems. Use your master gardener to help you work through your specific questions about plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So hopefully you guys noticed that for those of you that attended today, we had a raffle for a green cleaning kit. So our raffle winners are Susan Countryman, Ryan Aiken, and Linda Wood. We'll be in contact with the three of you to let you know how you can get your green cleaning kit, but it's full of lots of great items for cleaning your bathroom and kitchen and without having a negative impact on your septic system. At this point, we've got some great questions in the Q&A. I'd like to invite all of our presenters back on the screen, and we'll go ahead and answer some of your questions. So the first one that has been upvoted the most says, my drain field has 2 green spots where the grass is growing really well, only in those 2 spots. Is that normal?
So that can be normal. Sometimes it is normal and sometimes it's not normal. But most of the time when you have a failure, you won't just see green spots. You'll actually see soggy soils, squishy soils. It's not just green because there's a lot of nutrients that are coming into your drain field with the wastewater. And those nutrients, the grass really likes those. So it will turn green. Now, if it's only in a couple spots, it could be for a couple of different reasons. So that's one that really you probably want to contact me or Renee and have us come out to your site with your septic records. We can show you where everything's located, and it takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and we give you a little goodie bag of things that you can do, you can use to get more life out of your septic system. So I would recommend for those things, they're more site specific, because it could be as simple as the type of soil that you filled a hole up with. It could be a different kind of soil. Sandy soils don't hold water as well as non-sandy soils. So if you've got sandy soils throughout the whole drain field, but a couple parts have more humus soils, those could definitely make it a little more green. Or it could be over the part of the drain field where the sewage enters the drain field as well, which is an area that has a little bit more nutrients there too. So it could be normal. It could be indicating a potential problem, and we're happy to help you figure that out, which one it is.
Thank you, Leslie. The next question that's gotten the most upvotes is Costco Kirkland toilet paper okay to use in my pressurized septic system? Will the toilet paper dissolve quickly?
So I'll take that one too. Toilet paper is a question that's always asked, and I cannot recommend a specific type of toilet paper. However, I can tell you that toilet paper should either be staying in the top part of your tank as scum, or it should be going into the bottom part of your tank as sludge, because it's wood fibers or fibers, and those fibers, we do not want those in our drain field. So you can make your own mini septic tank out of a jar. Put some water in there with 3 sheets of toilet paper and see what happens. Does it completely fall apart into a slurry throughout the entire vessel? If it does that, that's not good toilet paper for septic systems. What we want to see is have it either hang up at the top or float to the bottom and stay together so that it can be pumped out of the tank instead of releasing the flat fibers into the drain field. Renee, do you have anything to add to that?
Sounds good.
Thanks, you guys. I want to point out that I see some people have raised their hand. If you've got a question, it's easiest for us if you can type it up in the Q&A. I recognize that some questions are really long to type up. So you'll also receive a follow-up email that has Leslie and Renee's contact information. We'll have information for the Master Gardeners. Toward the end, if we have time, we may be able to unmute and take some live questions, but if you can type them up in the Q&A, that would be best. Our next question is, how deep are most drain field pipes?
And that one also is something that's kind of site specific. In the olden days, back in the 60s, and we really don't even know what happened pre-60s because we didn't have development regulations or sewage regulations. So, but in the 60s, a lot of things were buried very, very deep. And nowadays we actually put things very, very up in the surface. So if you have a system that's within the last 10 years, yours should be within, a foot or so of the surface. And that's specified in your septic building site application. And if you're having trouble reading what that is, we're happy to help you with that as well. We can do that. You can give us a call. We can probably just do it right over the phone because there is a cross section in your building site application that shows how they want to see how the designer designed that system, how much additional cover they put over it, how deep they went into the original native soils, and how much we call it vertical separation, which is the amount of native undisturbed soil under the drain field. For gravity system, we need about 3 feet of that for state and local regulations. So again, that was not that answer is very site specific.
Next question is, my kitchen sink appears to not drain into the septic system, but into the woods. Is this typical in the area?
Well, I'll go ahead and take that one, Leslie. We have seen some homes where gray water is discharging to another area that, may have been done also in the olden days or by a previous owner, but those do need to be connected into your septic tank and treated, because gray water is still considered sewage under our regulations. And that's because it contains viruses and bacteria and things that you're washing off of, your dishes, and it's not good to just discharge that to the ground, and it's not legal to do that. So if you have some question about, is this pipe coming from my kitchen sink? We can help troubleshoot and see if it looks like it is. If it's a good distance away, we can even put some dye down the drain and see if it comes out the other end. So we can help you make that connection because it really needs to be going into your septic tank.
Yeah, for your family's health, because you can get sick from it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think the next question is going to require all three areas of expertise here, or all three people's areas of expertise. Someone asks or says, my drain field has a lot of moss growing within the lawn. Is this an indicator of overuse of the septic system?
I would say no. I would say that soggy, wet soils, that's an indication of a problem with the septic system. But moss, that seems to me to be more due to the shade and other parameters. What do you think, Paul?
I would agree, Leslie. It's really due to shade and lack of sunshine that on the surface. So.
And it's actually pretty. I actually like moss. It's so soft. It's so much softer than grass. So I actually really like it. I have it in my front lawn. My husband, I have to say, hates it.
Northwest controversial lawn subject there.
That's right.
Jonathan Lynch asks, can you talk about Glendale systems?
I can. Those are called actually Glendon, Glendon biofilter systems. And what they are is a constructed drain field. So we put those in areas where we have very shallow native soil. And so there's not a lot of soil to treat the waste. So what we do is we put a concrete box. And in the box, it's a proprietary mix of materials, but it's layers of sand and gravel. And what it does is it's pumped into the bottom of the box, and then it wicks up through all this media. And by the time it gets up to the top of the box, it's completely clean because those microbes have gobbled up all the organic material. And when it gets out to the top, it overflows into that pyramid thing. And that pyramid thing is actually the disposal unit. So you really want to make sure that the basal area around your Glendon biofilter is protected. Deer can dig those up. The soil can be lost. You want to keep them covered with grass if you can, because that'll hold the soil in. But I've seen those before where if you don't protect they're made with sand. And if you don't protect that sand, it'll go away and you'll have to rebuild them. And that's not good. They're also quite susceptible to greases and oils. Fats, oils, and greases are high strength waste. So you really want to wipe out your dishes and pans and make sure that you're not putting grease into the system, because they can clog up.
And that's true for any system, but especially Glendon's.
And really, Glendon is just a type of constructed drain field. And there are a lot of those nowadays, called a lot of different things. And we use those in places where we have very shallow soil. So we just don't have enough soil to treat the waste. We have just enough by state regulation to put a septic in, but it's got to have a lot of pre-treatment so that it can get adequate treatment in the soil, in the shallow soil that's there. So there are a lot of other systems that are like that too. Like even a sand filter. I think we had questions about sand filters. And a sand filter is just a constructed drain field made out of a certain kind of a sand. And it's either used as the sand is used as pre-treatment before the waste gets into the native soil.
Thank you. Jeffrey Hunter asks, I use a small amount of bleach in my laundry once a week. Is that bad for the septic tank?
I'll take that one because I also use a little bit of bleach, and you need to minimize your use of harsh chemicals, because anytime you're using something like bleach, you're knocking back that beneficial bacteria in your tank and in your whole system, really. So it's something to be aware of, just minimizing your use of harsh chemicals. So if you can use less, that's better. Did you have anything you want to add to that, Leslie?
No, that's exactly what I do.
Leslie likes oxygenated cleaner. It's a powdered form, and it's a kind of like a all fabric type bleach that doesn't really bleach out your clothes as much, but it's a little bit gentler. I still do use a bit of bleach on my whites as well. I'm just really careful.
And they have a liquid oxygenated cleaner now too, and I use that instead of bleach, and it works really well for me. So I'm very happy with it.
Excellent. Kirsten Wooster asks, is there a way to prevent tree roots from infiltrating our drain field pipes?
So this is actually probably a good one for me. I had a couple of mature, 20-year-old oak trees in my front yard. And once I started working at the health district, I started losing sleep over it because I realized they were way too close to my drain field. You really see exactly what's going on underground, but you can imagine that, if you have a very woody tree or woody bushes around your septic components, they're going to find that nutrient rich water and they're going to get inside those pipes. So the best way is just to, remove trees if you need to. I think there might be other questions related to this as well. You do need to be careful working in your drain field area because those components are also shallow. And so you need to take some care, but if you can plan ahead to not plant things in the area, and if you have already, if it's already infested with blackberry bushes and, things like that, definitely talk to one of us, either Leslie or I or Paul, and we'd be happy to work with you and talk with you about some different options for you. The most important thing is to know where your components are and protect them because they're a huge investment. It's like a new roof on your house. You really want to, just because it's underground, you still need to think about it, even though it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, usually, and just protect it like it's worth a lot of money because it is.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you're right. You're going to have to remove them if they're that close, to the system, because it's almost impossible to control the direction of root control, and you don't want to be digging around in it and trying to chop them off and do that. So it's really a case of you hope that when it was put in originally, it was put in with plenty of space, around the drain lines, because otherwise you're going to have trouble, just like that perforated pipe that we showed a picture of in the beginning. It's packed full of roots.
And sometimes people will have trouble with roots. Leslie and I have seen it a lot when we go out to people who are having trouble with their systems. And sometimes those roots can be, dealt with through things like jetting the lines. But if you don't remove the tree or the bush or whatever it is, it's going to grow back. And so you just, that's really a short-term fix. But there sometimes are issues that people have. I went out to a site where effluent was surfacing over the distribution box. And as soon as I looked at the record, which I noticed in the comments, someone else said that their record looked like it was drawn on a napkin, and it looked like that, but I could tell where it was. The measurements were there, and I could tell that there was a lilac bush just about a couple feet from the distribution box. So I could envision, I could see what's happening here. There's sewage surfacing here because these roots have completely filled the distribution box. So sometimes it's a simple fix, and then you've learned a really valuable lesson, and you can get back on track. And sometimes it's a bit more involved, but those roots are very aggressive in some instances. So just got to keep those bushes, plants, and trees sighted away from your system.
Thank you. We've got someone who asks, my yard where the drain field is located is pretty uneven and I want to add topsoil to level it out. Is there a limit to how much soil I can add on top?
I would say you don't want to put a lot of soil on top of a drain field or anything that does not breathe air. So if you're going to use soil on your drain field, you really need a good sandy loam soil. And you do not want anything clayey, because clay makes basically rice patties. So you don't want that. You want to have something that's going to breathe. About 15% of what happens in your drain field is evapotranspiration, and maybe even more in the summer. So you are getting some of that treatment is happening with evaporation. And so if you cover the soil with something that doesn't breathe, or if you put too much soil in, especially dense clayey soils, then you're going to have troubles. What do you think, Paul?
Absolutely. I wouldn't put anything other than a fairly heavy sandy loam, something that the moisture goes through easily, and I've been doing a little of that around mine. I've been out actually digging up, grasses I don't want, and filling holes with a composted topsoil that's all sand, almost all sand, and just beginning to level it off. And then I will plant this spring. I'm in a fairly new house, so I'll plant this spring some of the eco grass, so that, and just let it go, let it be a pretty field, and rather than any kind of a landscaped object out in the middle of your yard. And I know usually they put them right where the sunshine is, so you really want to grow vegetables, things like that on them. Just don't do it. Just treat the grass, put some grass out there, and enjoy the hill.
Just go ahead, Renee. Did you have more?
I was just going to say also, Leslie was talking about your records and how they specify how deep your components are. So if you want to be able to locate those components, those measurements are there. Of course, some settling could happen. And it is, I think, maybe a little unrealistic to think that you might have a perfect lawn over a drain field. You might have green spots, you might have dry spots like mine. So over my drain field legs is a very sandy soil mix. And so it can't get enough water to stay green there. So it's difficult to have that perfect lawn over a septic system. So you just have to kind of come to terms with it. It might not be necessarily.
Yeah, and you don't want to do a lot of excessive watering on that lawn over your drain field, because all you're doing is causing it to to shut down. It's just too much moisture.
Well, and there's a related question here too about sprinkler systems. So they have to be, those sprinkler heads are pretty, long. And so, really taking a look at all of your components and how deep they are, and how much water your grass really needs. Of course, it goes dormant in the summertime, but it needs a bit of water so it doesn't completely die off. So those
we don't really recommend sprinkler systems in drain fields, because when the drain field starts failing and you see, sewage is coming up a little higher in the drain field over time, and you might not know it yet. That could be a problem. If you have a sprinkler system in there and the water pressure is low, you could actually suck sewage right into that system. So if you have a sprinkler system in your drain field area, you need a backflow preventer, and you really should have that inspected annually. It is a big problem, potential problem for your home. That is a cross connection contamination for drinking water.
So another question is, what are the signs that a drain field is clogged or not performing properly?
You might have surfacing sewage like we saw in a couple of those pictures, blackish gray. Sometimes it's just water. It may have an odor to it, it may not. But if you see water in dry weather, that's not a good sign. Another thing you could look at is after you do a load of laundry or so, a heavy water day, you could go out and walk on your drain field and see if you see any sogginess, wetness. Water flowing out of a drain field is always a problem, or out of a septic tank, because that's basically sewage, and you could get sick from that. The other things are, you can get some early warnings like gurgling in your pipes, or you'll get backups occasionally. Like if your laundry's running at the same time somebody's doing other water use in the house, you might see some gurgling in there. But typically you're either going to get backup in the house or you're going to get surfacing in the yard. Or some of the really old ones have pipes out into woods. We do still see those occasionally. So that's a real problem for your family because you guys could get sick from it. I mean, think about that. Even if it's far away from your house, a fly could land on that. And while you're barbecuing, it could get right on your burger. So it's just not a good idea to have that kind of a discharge near your house. It's not healthy for your family, and not to mention your neighbors and everybody downstream.
Just want to give our presenters a time check. We've got about 15 minutes left in our hour. We've got 25 open questions still. We are committed to sticking around and getting all of these questions answered, but for all of you that signed up, you only signed up for an hour. So we'll do our best to get through as many of those questions as we can. Our next question says, I had a backup 2 years ago caused by my washing machine. Had it pumped. Now I don't even put toilet paper down my toilet, use my washing machine or harsh chemicals. My septic system literally scares me. My house is almost 50 years old and I'm so worried about the cost if replacement is ever needed. Anything else I can do to help avoid this?
Renee, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You start getting to a system being 50 years old, and it's pretty safe to say it's getting to the end of its lifespan. So even if roots aren't a problem, the soils can become clogged. So underneath those drain field legs, you can develop a biomat. So the soils just really can't accept the sewage sometimes after some time. We work with people who are having problems like this all the time. There are some low interest loans, other options through an organization called Craft 3, and we'll link the information at the end. But there's options there that are, the interest rates are lower based on income. So, and there's also options to keep you in your house and, pay interest only, or, to pay out the loan when it sells. So there are some other options. Sometimes seniors can qualify for USDA loans or park grants. So there are some options. We definitely want to help you, however we can. And sometimes that's conserving water, but you really shouldn't be afraid. We'll definitely help you if you reach out to us and see what, how we can help you walk through this, because it is stressful. We've seen it happen a lot. And like Leslie and I said, we all have our own barriers and issues, but having an awareness and feeling comfortable going forward, I think is really important for everyone who's a septic system owner. So reach out to us.
I just wanted to bring up that folks that are not flushing their toilet paper, that's not a good idea. Toilet paper is designed to be flushed into your septic system. Now, excessive toilet paper is a whole different story. So, if you've got somebody who's using a lot of toilet paper that's not necessary, that can be a problem. But toilet paper has bacteria on it. It has germs that can make you sick. If your cat drags it out of there and it's all over the floor, it's just not a good idea. We've learned long ago that you really need to put that stuff in a place where we cannot get in contact with it so it doesn't make us sick. So please flush your toilet paper. Again, if you guys are having struggles with your septic systems, water conservation is a big thing. Make sure you don't have water leaks. Make sure that you're not running your dishwasher at the same time as you're taking a shower or your washing machine. Break up your laundry. You want to break up your water use as much as you can. You want to avoid strong waste. So, try not to use it, especially no garbage grinders, but maybe put a strainer in your sink to keep food scraps out of there. But water conservation is going to be your friend. Oh, and routing roof drains away, because I see a lot of them. I see a lot of root problems, but frankly, I see a lot more that fail or that gurgle and have problems during heavy rain.
I just wanted to clarify one thing that Renee said. We will be sending you via email a resource list that should come tomorrow to that email, and it will have the contact information for Craft 3, as well as Leslie and Renee and the Master Gardeners. Next question. We have an older system that requires digging for access to the port. Is it worth the expense of updating to the current requirements?
I would say yes, just because it could cost you $75 to $100 to dig it up every time. Also, if you have a problem, it's really nice to be able to pop that lid on a weekend and see whether it's a problem in the plumbing or whether it's a problem in the septic.
Okay.
And it keeps it more watertight as well.
This one was maybe slightly related to the previous question. This person asks, I also have a really old system. Is it just a ticking time bomb as to when it will fail? Should there be a time frame when we should just plan to replace it, even if it doesn't have typical signs of failure? Makes me nervous.
I would say no. I think that's one where, well, you have to realize it's like your roof. You know that you're going to have to replace your roof on a periodic basis, and septic systems are the same. So you have to kind of budget that as part of being a homeowner. Is, there's certain things that you're going to have to do every so often, and that's one of them. But I don't look at mine as a ticking time bomb. I look at it as a living being. And I'm trying really hard to keep it alive and doing everything I can to reduce my waste strength, to, not put things in there that challenge it. Like undigested food does not do well in soil. It's a little bit stronger. It'll plug it up quicker. Digested food works really well. So that's, there's some things that you can really do. But on average, we figure they last about 30 years, and mine lasted 40.
Excellent. Is bright green grass over the drain field when the rest of the lawn is brown during the dry summertime an indication of a problem?
And Renee just answered that one. She has that same problem.
Yeah,
she has the backwards problem.
Mine's the opposite. But I have gone out and visited sites where you can clearly see where the drain field's supposed to be, all the components are supposed to be. And you've got, say you've got a couple drain field legs that make a box like this, and one's totally green and one's not. That could indicate something's going on. Something isn't quite right. Why is one green and one not, or one area green and one not? So yes, it can be normal and fine, and it's common. Just look at, make sure you're looking at your records and that it looks similarly where it should.
But if you have a step down system, the top leg's going to be green, and you may not have the other legs green depending on how much water you use. So it really depends on the type of system. So we can help you figure that out with your records and figure out, like in September, October, before it starts to rain, you can really see where your drain field's located. It's very, very easy this time of year to see where it is, because it's been so dry that if there's any type of nutrient coming up, and if the higher your drain field is up in the soil surface, the more you're going to see it as well. And then also some of them were backfilled with more of a sandy soil, and some were more with that sandy loam. You really want that sandy loam soil, because that helps you grow grass and retain a little water.
So this question feels a little bit related, and Renee alluded to this one before. It says, my as-builts look like they were written on a napkin 35 years ago. How would I figure out exactly where the legs of the field are?
We can help you. We read these all the time, and I feel for you. Mine was the same way. So we have a little bit more experience reading them. And so if you have one that you just can't figure it out, let us know. We're happy to come on out. We'll pick a time that's convenient for you, as long as it's light, and we can come out and bring your records, and we can walk over where we think it is. And some of them we even have challenges with. So, but we can certainly look in our records, because sometimes we'll have, the permit won't be very good, but there might be an old building clearance that's a little better. So sometimes we can help you. Or this time of year, you can really usually see where those drain legs are.
Excellent. Another time check for our presenters. We've got about 6 minutes left. Paul, can you give us guidance on who we can contact to help plan a new yard over our septic system?
To actually hire a service to do that, we have a recommendation that we send people to the Northwest Landscape Association, and they have a list of people who can come out and assist, you know, in design and layout and can help you with plants. The master gardeners don't make home visits, and we don't do design work, you know, but we're willing to help ask questions and forward you to resources. But the Northwest Landscape Association is our go-to group, and they have people who are capable of assisting you, and they're well versed on how to plant over drain fields.
Excellent. Should we worry about underuse or intermittent use?
No. It's basically, the only time you would worry about that is if you had a cabin in Alaska that had a special high-tech system and you were gone all winter. Then you might need to use some type of an additive to get it started. But typically, gravity and most of these systems do not have an issue. Now, some of the aerobic systems may. So if you have an operation and maintenance contract and you have an alternative system, talk to your maintenance contractor about that and make sure that there's not something you need to do to feed that aerobic system. But really, most of them don't need that.
Excellent. Next question is, I have a shady area near the drain field that won't grow anything because the pine trees along the property line cause so much acidity. Do you have plants that you could recommend?
Again, that's a great question to put into the master gardener site. They do have resource lists, you know, for acidity based plants. You know, obviously your native plants, your rhododendrons, your azaleas are perfect in that environment and like the shade, you know, and like that space. There are others, but I would put that question into the clinic, and let's let our master gardener teams answer it specifically and get in conversation with you about it.
Next question is, how do I know if I have a baffle in my system? Also, where are baffles located?
Baffles should always be in your tank. You should have an inlet baffle, a center baffle, and an outlet baffle for a 2-compartment tank. The baffles turn the wastewater 90 degrees so that the scum layer floats to the top of the tank and the sludge layer settles to the bottom. If you don't have baffles, what happens is when the wastewater flows into your tank, it stirs everything up. And we really want the tank to function as a settling device because we want that high strength scum to go to the top. We want the sludge to go to the bottom, and only that clear stuff do we want to go out into the drain field. The other problem is if you don't have an outlet baffle, then the scum layer goes straight out into your drain field and plugs it up too quick. So baffles protect your drain field by keeping the scum and sludge layers in your tank.
So we've got just a few minutes left, and I recognize that some people may need to hop off of this. Again, we are going to stick around and continue to answer questions until we are unable to answer anymore. But if you have to hop off, you will get a link at the end to a SurveyMonkey evaluation of this webinar today. This is the first time that we've done a Septic Sense webinar. We used to do these workshops in person, but we're really excited about doing this and really interested in your feedback. So if you could fill that out for us, we'd really appreciate it. In about a day, you should get an email with a lot of different links to different resources. It'll include resources about green cleaning. I've mentioned contact for Leslie and Renee, the Master Gardeners, other septic care information. So that'll be there for you. Again, we're recording this, so you'll also eventually receive an email with a link to the recording so that you can go back and watch this. If you've got questions, if you miss parts, you'll be able to review that. So I just want to appreciate all of you being here today, and we'll get back to the questions now. My drain field is on a steep slope, and over the years, the soils have deteriorated. My once green lawn is now mostly a sandy-ish slope. I need to amend the soils, but I'm afraid of messing up the system. Any suggestions? I'm a big clover fan, but even that struggles, especially in the summer.
You need to be careful on slopes. Slopes can be hazardous. And so really what you need to do, we actually have a couple of booklets about slopes and planting on slopes. And I'm happy to forward those to you. So get in touch with me directly about that. And I'm happy to come out and make site-specific recommendations. You don't want to put anything too heavy on a slope to make it erode further. You know, you really need to be careful with slopes. Paul, do you have any addition?
Absolutely, Leslie, and that's a great booklet. Planning on steep slopes is tough, and there are specific plants that do well in doing that are shallow rooted and can help support that environment.
And sometimes it's a drainage issue. So I've seen little rivulets develop. So sometimes it's a drainage issue that needs to be corrected above the drain field area to get that water running a different direction.
So again, time check to our presenters. We've got 22 open questions right now. It is now 11, so we may need to try to condense our answers a little bit as best we can. Next question, is it okay to use fertilizer, Scott's weed and feed, on the grass over the drain field?
I would prefer you didn't. Not good for the environment. But I know you want to turn it green, so it's really a hard question, you know.
It really is. You really to get green soil in a brown area, weed and feed is not really going to help you with that.
Nope.
And what it does do, unfortunately, weed and feed has a lot of chemicals in it. And so if you are not applying it really, really carefully in our area, you can release those chemicals in places where you don't want them and lose them from the places that you do want them. So my recommendation is always organic. I always recommend if you have to use a fertilizer, use organic, but compost in our areas work really, really well. If you want to renovate a portion of a lawn, and you want to, amend the soils with compost, that will actually provide probably a longer term solution than the chemicals poured on top.
Yeah, our soils out here are so sandy in most cases. So any kind of compost that you can add to the top in a small layer and then plant over the top of that can be very successful.
Okay, what is the estimated cost of adding exterior access ports?
That is a good question, and I do not know the answer, but what I do know is I do have a list of installers and maintenance specialists on our website, and what I always recommend is you contact them and ask and get three different people, ask 3 different folks. You can also do that yourself. It's not the greatest idea because you're actually going into the drain field. So you really want to use somebody who's very experienced so you don't form a conduit from the ground surface or from the drain field up to the ground surface, because sometimes those conduits can be fixed and sometimes they can't. So you really want to make sure you're somebody that really knows septic systems is doing this for you. And so I would get at least 3 bids. Sometimes you can piggyback with a neighbor. Sometimes it's a little more convenient if they just have to bring their truck out one time. Sometimes you can help them. But I don't really know exactly what the price would be to, it sounds like you want to put in observation ports in your drain field. And they may already be there. They may have already been there, but got cut off below the ground surface. That happens a lot with new drain fields. People see those ports and they cut them right off. And boy, that's a real problem because then later on, you really can't see under the ground. That's what they're for. They're to see underneath the ground so you don't have to dig it up. And it'll tell you which parts of the drain field are wet and which parts are dry and whether there's too much water in any particular area to make sure that it's working per design.
And then know what you're asking for when you call. So if you're asking for something like watertight risers for your tank lids, if you're speaking the same language with each person, it'll be easier to get bids.
Yeah.
I see 2 questions here that I can answer. One is, can we purchase a green cleaning kit? No, but you'll get an email that tells you what's in that and you can purchase all the items separately. The next is, what kind of detergent is in the part of the green cleaning kit? We don't include a dish detergent in that. So then the next is for Leslie and Renee. I use Dawn detergent. Is that okay to use?
I use that too. I just use limited amounts of it, but I also use Castile soap for cleaning. So I use Dawn for washing dishes, but for the rest of my cleaning, I use Castile soap in a spray bottle and I dilute it down with water.
For Paul, are Salal, evergreen, huckleberry, and sword ferns okay over a drain field?
The sword ferns certainly are just fine. They're great, and they're native. Salal's a bit woody, and you're going to create some trouble within your drain lines. Keep your salal on the perimeter, where you've got the rest of your native plants.
Thank you. Someone asks if they can discharge their RV waste into their septic tank.
Gosh, I would say no. I wouldn't do it personally because RV waste is much stronger than residential strength waste. And the reason for that is in a residence, you're actually taking showers, you're washing clothes. There's a lot of dilution going on. In an RV, you're not doing that. So you basically have a stronger waste. And if you're using any additives into your tank, they can contain harmful chemicals, which would actually harm your drain field. So I don't typically recommend that. We have a lot of RV dumps in Kitsap County. And so that's just so much more convenient to use those than to, rely on your septic system to do that.
What type of system would allow for a kitchen sink garbage disposal?
Maybe a system with 3 septic tanks. The problem with garbage disposers is they grind up undigested food waste really, really fine. So it doesn't settle out in the tank. It ends up in your drain field. So you end up with a stronger waste, and you get a thicker biomat where the microbes are working, and it'll plug up quicker. So my recommendation would be, I just don't use my garbage disposer at all. I know it's convenient, but there are a lot of tools nowadays that are made for composting and retaining those scraps. And I even use the sink strainer in my sink because you would be really surprised to see how many food scraps accumulate in there. And those food scraps are not digested. They're strong. So they're going to make you pump your tank more frequently, and they're going to be a little harder on your drain field. And, you'll pay the price for that.
Anything specific to add to the system to improve bacteria functioning?
Don't add harsh cleaning products. You just have to add your digested food waste, and your microbes will come right with that, and they'll do all the work. All you need to do is make sure that you're not drowning your system and you're not poisoning your system with harsh chemicals. Anything that you can't eat, the septic system really shouldn't be eating either.
Hey, our septic system has an alarm system. What kind of issue or issues does the alarm system detect?
Well, that's basically a pump alarm. Typically, the alarm system means that you have high water somewhere in your system, and typically you'll find that in a pump tank. So your septic tank takes the wastewater, and then it flows into a pump tank, and then that pump tank either pumps to gravity, or it pumps to pressure, or pumps to another disposal unit. So what happens is that when the pump fails, or something happens in that tank, or you have too much water, you get an alarm at the pump tank, like I did when my basement toilet was, my husband didn't jiggle the handle, and it flowed and flowed and flowed, and I heard the alarm go off, and I ran down there, and sure enough, what had happened is the water level was just about at the point where it would become a problem. And what I mean by that is that if you let your pump tank overflow, if you hear that alarm and you don't stop water use in the house right away, you could actually fail your junction box, which is the electrical box inside, and you might even have to replace that or repair it, rewire it, because the wiring gets messed up when the sewage comes up over it. And then just after that, it overflows into your yard. So that's what that pump alarm is telling you. It's telling you, I'm too full, and you have a couple 100 gallons left before I surface in your backyard.
Okay. So we've got a question that says, how to help a homeowner that has a failed system but can't afford the repairs or a new system? Also, if they can't afford an O&M, do you have suggestions?
We do these on site-by-site, case-by-case basis. So what I'd recommend is contact Renee or I, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. We have a few of them like that that we try to work with.
If properly maintained, how long should a system last?
I've seen them last 50 years. I've seen systems where I walk out there and over it, and it's 50 years old, and I don't see any sewage surfacing, and there's nothing that I can tell is happening in that system. It seems to be working fine. And usually those people already know what I come to tell them.
Another question. I have a pressurized system with grass on top. It's in my backyard. I'd like to irrigate the grass so that it stays green. May I put a sprinkler system on? We talked about this a little bit. The sprinkler PVC pipe irrigation lines will not be installed over the septic system. The pipes will be installed about a foot setback from the septic system layout.
I would still recommend a backflow preventer, because if you have an accumulation of sewage anywhere near those pipes, and 1 foot is not far, you could definitely have sewage backing up into your water system. It's a big risk. Most people don't understand what a big risk it is.
We're down to 10 questions now. This one says, my inspection ports are on the drain field legs at the end. Is that okay?
Usually they're designed by the designer, so you'll actually see those in your building site application where those are located. And they also sometimes put them on your as-built if you get a good as-built. And by the way, folks, we're doing a better job on as-builts now. The designers are involved now. So we've got a better process going on, so you can actually read them and know what components are in there now. So that's not going to happen in the future.
What is the best choice for winterizing your house?
Not sure.
We might need more clarification on that if you're still out there, whomever asked that question.
We don't have the kind of climate typically where you have to worry about winterizing your tank. I know in Alaska, some places where it gets super, super, super cold, then they put tanks farther underground and they do insulating things and other stuff, but we don't typically have that kind of weather here where we need to do that in terms of weatherizing the septic system, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. My drain field is in a wooded area with mature cedar and maple trees. Should I be removing the leaves and branches from this area on a regular basis?
From around from anything on top of that drain field, yes. If around the perimeter, pull it back in, pick up the trash. There's a lot of other reasons to pick it up too. Particularly in this country with powdery mildew out there. Powdery mildew loves to sit on the duff and the ground, along the edge of drain fields, and will be contaminating your yard if you're not careful.
And it'll kill the grass too, the shade.
Kill the grass too, yeah.
And another gardening question. How close to the drain field can I plant a fruit tree?
Well, I wouldn't plant it more than about 25 feet away. I'd keep it way away from the drain field.
Leslie and Renee, you guys talked about the toilet paper test. For the test of toilet paper in a jar, how long does the test take?
I'd give it about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then you could also do like a sub test after that. And what you do is just a gentle shake. I mean, you don't want like really give it a big shake. You just want a gentle shake. What you're doing is you're imitating the flow through the pipes into the tank. Just a little gentle shake, and see if then it falls apart. And just act like that's your septic tank. And if you see it floating all together and holding together, that's good, because that means it'll stay out of that center part that goes out into the drain field. If it doesn't, if it turns into a big slurry, and I have to tell you, I've seen them that do, it turns into basically just, there's no integrity to it anymore. It looks like a cloud in the jar. Don't use that toilet paper. Now that's probably great for sewer systems, because they want everything to break down in sewer systems. But for septic systems, we want it to hang together, either the top of the tank or the bottom of the tank. So you should see that hold all 3 sheets together, either floating at the top or sinking to the bottom.
I think this is a follow-up on a previous question, and I'm not quite sure what this one is asking, but maybe Paul, you'll know. The person says the trees are old growth. Can we use the copper additives? We might need more clarification for that.
I know some people do that. I've heard that before, where sometimes they'll work with a designer, or they'll work with like a septic person that recommends using additives in the septic system. But I really don't know enough about that to really make a recommendation on that. And it's not really something that's commonly done, because it would be something you'd have to be constantly doing.
Yeah,
I've been on site with a professional who did jetting and then had used an additive like this, but they said it's only a matter of time. It's still going to keep growing back. It's still going to be a perpetual problem.
So 5 more questions left for those of you guys that are hanging out with us. And then if anybody wants to, I think maybe still have a few hands raised. We may be able to do even a few more questions that way. In systems over 50 years old, was the curtain drain or French drain tied into the septic tank?
Curtain drains or French drains should not be tied into septic tanks. Those actually are routing outside water around the septic system. What you don't want is you don't want to have a lot of roof water running into your septic system area, your drain field area, or your tank area. And I see this all the time in certain neighborhoods where their roof drains go right over their tank and their drain field. And then we get a heavy rain for a couple of days and they all pump their tanks and the water level's really high because they can't flush. So you got to get that water away from the system. It's really important.
We did get clarification on that question about winterizing. The clarification is, what I was interested in knowing is what's the best antifreeze to use in toilets and sinks that's least harmful to septic systems?
That's a great question. And I'm not even really sure, to tell you the truth. I'd have to ask some of the maintenance contractors myself. I've not gotten that question before. I can look into that for you if you want to get a hold of me.
I was just going to say that sounds like a follow-up email to Leslie and Renee.
That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. Yeah. Does a drip system need to be pumped?
Drip systems also have tanks. They have a septic tank that settles the solids before it goes into a whole bunch of really involved pre-treatment stuff and back flushing and all kinds of drip systems are very complicated. And then only then does that wastewater go in, or the effluent go into those drip pipes, because you don't want to plug up the drip pipes. They're kind of like, they're designed on the basis of similar to drip irrigation. So they're underneath the soil and there's a lot of them. So it would be really difficult to unplug those. So what they do instead is they actually back flush them and they do a lot of pre-treatment to make sure that water is really clean. So yes, you do. And actually drip systems, you have a required operation and maintenance contract on that system to make sure it's working right. And your operation and maintenance person should let you know. If they're not letting you know, let us know. We can show you how to look it up. You can look up your maintenance records. It's really easy.
Hey, any thoughts on raised beds near a drain field? It's the only sunny spot left in this person's yard.
Well, near is probably not a problem. Raised beds are fine. You know, you're going to do, 12 inches of soil, as long as it's not on top. You're going to be fine. It's just, I would do it. It wouldn't bother me, but don't want it on top. Don't want it near where I'm going to have to dig up, have to replace, have to inspect, that system. That's costly to have to go back in and tear it all out.
And drain fields typically have a 10-foot no build zone around the drain field and a 30-foot on the downhill side if there's a slope.
Right.
So you really don't want to compact that area or make that area lower. You want to stay that on the sides, you want to stay 10 feet away. And on the downhill side, you want to stay like 30 feet away. You don't want to make any cuts or anything that might form a conduit so sewage can come up.
Right.
Replacing a septic, is it best to install in dry summer months or is it okay during the rainy season?
You really have to install it during dry weather because you can damage the soils if it's too wet. And in fact, the designer has to approve any installations during wet weather. They have to go out and check the soils and make sure that they can't be damaged, because we just don't want to see damaging soils. That could be a big problem for folks. So yeah, we really need dry weather to do these systems.
How close is too close for fir trees?
I would like to see them out there at least 20-25 feet. They have root systems that are on the surface. They're not deep, and they will travel. They will find that drain field.
Okay, and this is our last question, and then we're going to go and see who's still got hands raised and see if some people want to talk to you guys directly. We're building a new pressurized system, 3-tank NU water in a heavily wooded area on a vacant lot. It's a new home build. Is there anything we should watch out for? Are you available to come out and provide consultation or advice?
Yeah, we're happy to talk with you about it. A new water system is a really high-tech system. What it means is you have pretty shallow soils out there, and you need to pre-treat it. So, but yeah, we're happy to give you some recommendations about that. You know, you're going to want to make sure that that drain field for the new water, you're going to want to make sure that that is not in the wooded area. And if it is, you might as well clear it now. You also want to make sure if they are clearing the area that you have an installer do that. You don't want just to have anyone come out and clear trees, because you may lose soil and that may make it so you can't develop on the lot. So you want to make sure that your designer recommends who should be clearing that lot for you, and ask them that question. How do I make sure that I don't have tree encroachment in the future? What can we do now to prevent that?
Okay, so we've got Cecily or Cecile, I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, who has got a hand raised and is now able, hopefully, to ask her question.
Okay, my question is, my system was built for a 3-bedroom house. And if only 1 or 2 people are using the system, could the period of time before I pump again be extended beyond 3 years?
Yep, it can. It'll be different for everybody depending on how you use water in your house. And so what you should do is the next time you have it inspected, be there with the pumper and ask them that question. And we can tell you, or if you can't figure out when your system was last pumped, we can look in our records too. So if you're having trouble with that, reach out to us, because we can look up on our side to see if it's possible to see how long it was since the last time. But typically you kind of look at what it looks like when they're pumping it now, and then they can kind of make some recommendations about how long you can wait in between. Because even if you're at home and you have visitors coming, if you're just one person and you're cooking a lot, and you still could, you know, accumulate some solids, I typically recommend that you can stretch it typically to about 5 years.
So I was standing there when I had it inspected, actually, when I was in escrow purchasing, and the man commented that it looked like it was in excellent condition.
Good to hear.
Okay, and that was with 3 years with a family of 5 living there.
You could probably go 4 to 5 years before you have it inspected next time, unless somebody moves in with you, or you're entertaining a lot, or you know, you've got visitors a lot. Those kind of things can also add up, or you're running a business in the house or something like that, where people are coming and going and using the facilities. You may have a little bit more load, but if it's just you in there, you may be able to stretch it to 4 or 5 years.
Thank you so much for your help with that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, next we've got Susan. And oh, maybe not. Maybe we answered that question. I don't see any other raised hands, and I don't see anything else in the Q&A. So again, I want to say thank you to all of you who attended. Again, you'll get a link when the webinar ends, or when you log off, that will take you to an evaluation, because this is the first time for us going through this. We'd really love to hear your feedback. We're always looking for ways to improve this and do an even better job of getting this information to all of you. With that, I've sort of stalled a minute or two to make sure that there weren't any